Hey, welcome back. This is really, really amazing. It's great to see it's 400 people waiting in the room now. Where are you guys from, by the way? Hope you're having a good day and hope you're doing well. I want to say something, give you the latest update about myself. Hope you can catch me here. To most people, sky is the limit. But for us who love aviation, sky is our home. I really didn't know how far I can spread my wings until I recently start flying. So the latest thing I did recently is I've been concentrating getting my private pilot license in the U.S. here. So I've been flying out of Los Angeles, which is a great area, great weather, great traffic, lots of good radio communication skills to be learned on the radio. So I've been doing so far 6.5 hours flying. I did about 3 touchdowns, pretty bad, not so nicely buttery landing. So I'm practicing a lots and lots of skills on the flying, like slow turns, stalling, touch and go, flying in the pattern. Hopefully by 15 to 20 hours, I'll be capable of doing my own. I'll be capable of doing my own solo flights. Then I will make a video with you guys showing my solo flights, which is already pretty intensive. But I want to show you how I came up with this solo flight and how I'm doing. And also, I've been doing at home on my ground school. So ground school is really important to gain the knowledge about flying, to understand the aerodynamics, to understand the physics, to understand how the engine work, and also understand all the regulations about FAA, all the regulation, what private pilot can and cannot do. And that's actually a hard part compared to flying. Flying part is actually easier. But having said that, the multitasking skills during a flight on a small airplane like I fly, a sling, is incredibly hard for me. I don't know, it's because my age or it's just because I'm not used to it. You can feel like, seriously, you can feel like you have to do several things in the air. You have to control your speed, look up your altimeter, look up your altitude headings, angle headings, and then also look at your power setting on the throttle. And then you constantly have to look out the window, look at the horizon, look at your instruments gauge. So it's actually lots of work, and it's a matter of thing is it will get used to it in due time. So far that's what I've been doing. And I mean, this whole thing here, this virus thing here, the pandemic has lasted. The severity has probably much longer than I have expected, and everyone have expected. But there's some good news on the horizon. I believe is you can see that there are some countries now. The domestic flights are opening, are coming back. So yesterday I've seen news Australia, New Zealand about to open up, and the news about domestic flight and their own travel bubbles. But there's still the international flight is not happening though. It's still taking some much more longer time, probably to Q3 or Q4, if we're hopeful. Just because if one country open the virus spread again, then it's going to create a second back wave of virus spreading, and then so it's better to just to wait and see. That's what every country is doing. The border closure doesn't help for encouraging people to fly. It hits me really hard, honestly, because I really enjoy flying. I really enjoy international flying, and that's where it's not happening right now. And you can imagine this is probably the longest stretch I have been on the ground. And you have to face a new normal of life. You have to alter your life just to keep it, keep yourself get going. You have to do something to challenge yourself, to engage yourself, to keep yourself busy, right? You don't want to waste this time. And then so it's better to set your goals, concentrate on something you haven't done before, you can accomplish during the downtime of COVID-19. It's really affecting everybody. I know how hard it has been. So this was why I'm trying to do this and give you guys a bit of motivation as well. So let's chat. And again, thank you so much for your support. I see people send through questions on Super Chat. You can see there's a lot of comment popping up. I wish all my eyes can glue to the screen to see it. I try to my best to answer as much as I can. When will the flight to Europe start, Alex? From the U.S. there are some schedules on the flight to Europe, their sparse schedule with a few airlines are still flying transatlantic. KLM, Lufthansa, Delta, American, United have very skeleton scheduled flight transatlantic. But I think these are for essential travel and critical travel need, because in the US here, the travel from Schengen area coming to US is actually banned if you are non-US citizens coming in. So until this restriction, the quarantine and border restriction are lifted, I don't see a resumption of international flight into Europe. Every country is protecting their borders and citizens, and that hampers flying. So, like I said, domestic flights in Europe will be happening before the international, and and it has to be proved to be healthy as well, the domestic flights. Then people can get the confidence, the authority can lift the restriction to allow international flight to happen. So yeah, so let me see what else I want to say here is that how about social distancing? Have you guys thought about whether it will work on the plane about social distancing? This is actually a really hot debatable topic right now, because I mean, on the ground, you probably seen in I don't know, in the restaurant or in everywhere you go, supermarket, grocery, there are sticker marks on the ground to stay 6 feet or 2 meters apart. But it's not going to happen like this in the air, right? Because in the air is the space is so limited. And imagine if everyone's doing 6 feet apart or 2 meters apart, the airplane is going to feel like 30%, and the airlines are running losses, huge losses that affect a lot of jobs. So this is the thing, like a lot of airlines like Qantas, Ryanair, a lot of airline has came out saying social distancing would not work. Rather, we'll give you mask, rather we'll have a lots of strict measures, to help you to get through this. And some airline backtrack as well, which is like United. I think United and Alaska, what I have noticed is that they said they will block first class next to you, and they will block the middle seats. But it looks like they only block on the seat map. They retracted the earlier statement saying we'll block the middle seats. So they say, like, if there is a full flight, we will notify you. I think Americans doing that as well. So they're not really doing social distancing. The only airline I saw that it went back and forth talking about blocking seats or keeping 60%, 50% of the flight full is Delta Airlines, which so is good kudos to Delta. And so it seems like majority airline disagree with the social distancing on board. I don't know, what's your opinion? Feel free to send me your opinion, because really I would like to hear your opinion. And let's see what else we got here. Wow, this is overwhelming. I've got so much comment. I can't even read through all this because it's been popping up the screen so fast. So earlier we have a chat comment about when is the flight to US going to start? That's the same question. Domestic flights actually looking good right now, slowly bouncing about 10%, 11% of what it was, but it was even lower. It was 4%, 5%. So, which is really an encouraging sign. The importance about flight restart is to be able to prove that it's not going to spread the pandemic further during the air travel. Then we will get the confidence, then the authority will be clear about this. So let's see. Okay. The other things that I've seen, good thing about it is India has restarted domestic flying, although I think there's a bit of chaotic, and some states are having last minute restriction, uncoordinated restriction about how many flights are able to take off. That stranded lots of customers, stranded lots of passengers. And then Saudi Arabia is thinking about restarting on 31st of May. So this is actually encouraging to see more countries are slowly are reconnecting with people and thinking about the importance of aviation and restarting. That is step by step, which is really encouraging. Okay, so there's a question about when am I going to fly? I am waiting for, obviously, flying for a reason. I'm not flying without a reason. Like I said, it's actually hitting me really hard because all the borders are closed, internationally travel, and you need self-quarantine, or you need mandatory quarantine, I should say. So it is no longer feasible to doing what I used to do. Think about it. I used to do, maybe in 2 weeks' time, I go to 4 or 5 countries. But imagine if you go to one country, you had to quarantine for 14 days. So it will be a hell lot of time consuming and effort to do what I used to do. So it is seriously impacting me as well. And all I can do is just to wait and see how this thing develop and turn out, and evaluate what I can really do at this moment, because the important is to get through this time, and maybe hopefully by 2021 there is a travel vaccine is going to help. Okay, I have one aviation 29. He's asking Qatar Airways, what do you think about Qatar A380 retirement, right? How do I do this? Let me see if I can put this on top. Put user, okay. What's your opinion Qatar A380 retirement? Look, I think that these are not permanent retirement. I think that in a year or two, you might see the A380 come back to the skies. I remain pretty positive. A lot of airplanes will be parked, and because the low demand, right? It's a matter of demand and supply game. So when the economy and the travel rebound, the bigger plane may have a future again. This is the beauty of aviation. As I said, it's very unexpected, very hard to predict in a couple of years what will happen. I can tell you that Emirates has about 115 A380. There was a mass rumor about Emirates going to retire 40% of the A380, up to 46 A380 is going to retire just like that. And these A380s are new, like 10 years old maximum. So the Emirates president, Tim Clark, came out and denied the rumor, saying, because the rumor actually was created from his personal interview, saying we might need 30% reduction of the fleet down the line. But then he came back and clarified, saying that these planes will be parked. But by 2022, given a very optimistic scenario, this airplane will come back. So we'll be using all our fleets again. So as you can see, the situation is very fluid and dynamic. There's no one fixed answer right now saying, oh, the A380 is going to retire or going to fly. So it all depends on the economy. It all depends on the travel demand. And the airline, if they have 500 people want to fly to London, surely the A380 can do that job. So go figure. We will see some of the A380 will be continue to fly in the sky for sure, because they might be using one A380 instead of a few other planes. And A380 is also a good plane for social distancing, probably because the space allowed, as long as it's not completely filled. So that's the idea. I am pretty confident about Emirates, Qatar. The A380 will come back. So as Etihad, so as Emirates. The only airline has came back and stated that they will permanently retire the A380 is Air France. But Air France, as well, we knew that if you follow aviation for a while, you knew Air France didn't really like their A380 for a very long time. The CEO came out saying that it's going to retire by 2022 because they have an outdated cabin, and they didn't want to spend money to improve the cabin. They rather just retire the fleet. So now, because of coronavirus, they are just bringing this plan ahead of time. So it is completely not unexpected Air France to do so. Okay, so let's see any other comment about. Okay, there's quite a few comment about this PIA A320 crash, right? Which I have covered that on the blog. So as any major incident, we'll be covering on the blog. The blog is samchui.com if you haven't seen it. And I really encourage you to subscribe to the newsletter so you don't miss out any deals or any good news feed. I'm not going to speculate what happened on the PIA flight because it's rather early days. Although we have seen evidence here and there, we have seen things, people can put up a theory together. I'd rather let the authority do their job before prematurely pointing out something which is not right. So, and that's not my job. That's the air investigator, crash investigator job. It is really sad, first of all, what happened, and it just couldn't happen in the worst time right now. And the country just resumed flying. Such deadly accident happened, and I feel so bad. And of course, that day I didn't want to post this on my Instagram because I just feel so sad. There's so much negative news coming out of this whole COVID-19. We don't need any more of that. So, I just put it on the blog, and I refrain to share all these really crash and really, accident damage image because it just make people disturb people. So I have to think about that. And then I do have quite a lot of fans from Pakistan or India or keep asking me to put it on there. But I felt like I already reported on the blog, and if you go to the blog, it's already featured, just like every other major incident. There's no need to escalate and spread out further and further. So let's see any other people have any question. And I also encourage you to use the super chat to support me. If you have any question on the super chat, it's easier to highlight on the screen so I can read out, because as you can see, there's so much commentary from people, which is absolutely fantastic. Hopefully people can mingle and chat here. Okay, so I've got a question about Korea. How was Korean Air? Have you used Incheon? How do you think about Incheon? Do you like Incheon more than LAX? Yes, I use Incheon. Incheon is fantastic. Incheon is constantly top 5 airport in the world. It's just beautiful, new infrastructure. And Korean Air, yes, Korean Air is very old school, very immaculate. They have their standard, they have their, how do you say, they have their class, and Korean Air is always a 4 to 5 star in my book, because it's just a very systematic airline. It's like Japanese airlines as well. They follow their book so strongly. They perform everything, want to do everything flawlessly, So it depends if you like go with the flow or you like systematic thing, right? Okay, I have Airbus. I'm too sad Air France stopped the A380. Indeed. Look, this is the aviation thing, right? You see a lot of old planes get superseded by new planes. And one day the A380s, Air France, like I said, they made it very clear about this. They're going to retire the A380 even before the coronavirus come. And now they just kind of expedite the retirement, right? It is a sad any time of the day when things happen like that. So what's going to replace it? Maybe A350, I believe. The Air France A350 is brand new, is customer friendly, because the interior on Air France A380 is very outdated. They don't even have fully flat business class seats. They have an angle flat first generation business class seats. So yeah. So I have people saying shirts, Sam, please. So you seeing I'm wearing this my logo shirt. So right now, as you probably have noticed, that I have a merchandise store set up by Crowdmade, which is a merchandise maker. They're actually start making my logo with a mask and T-shirts and pillows and safety vest, airplane high visibility safety vest. So there's a lot of new products at my store. And again, I would like to thank you very much for your continuous support, because we sold over hundreds of items in a very short time when it was launched. And there is a 20% discount at the moment if you put Sam Chui 20, and you will get 20% discount, Sam Chui 20. So let's continue with some of your questions here. Let's see. What do you think about Boeing's and Airbus situation? Thanks. Both Boeing and Airbus received no orders so far in the Q2, I believe. And there's massive layoff, about 12,000 people out of Boeing, and I think similar over 10,000 out of Airbus. That is also not unexpected, because every aviation company, manufacturers, suppliers, or whether it's engineering company, probably except cargo companies, logistic companies, can ride through this for short term. All the other companies are having a hard time, and it's a cyclical thing. There are times they're hiring, there are times they're firing as well. Unfortunately, aviation is one of those really cyclical industry that see through the rise and the fall of the economy faster before all the other economy in the industry. So Bradley, Penny Aviation, what are your top 5 flights you have flown? I also make aviation content. Okay, good to know. I'll check your channel as well. We both share the same passion. Take care. Top 5 flights. I think out of my head, I've done about probably over 2,200 flights. So top 5, definitely there'll be a Concorde. I've flown one time in 2003. That is 17 years ago. Can you believe it? Maybe many of you haven't born yet. I think I have flown, let me think. I think recently I've flown the Qantas 787 nonstop London to Australia. That's also one of the really remarkable flights. Lots and lots of 747 flights. But I think probably I would say the first A380 in the world, I've flown Singapore Airlines from Sydney to Singapore. That's also very significant. The first A380 commercial in the world. I'm not old enough to fly the first 747 commercial in the world, but the A380, I made it. So I think that's significant as well. The other 2, I gave you top 3, right? So The other two, I don't think I can come up because there's so many great flights. But thank you so much for that question. What will be changed in aviation? That's a great question, Ollie. So what will be changed is if you look at everything from check-in, boarding, and into cabin, everything will be differently now because we all kind of evolve and learning a lesson how to be safe to fly, right? So if you look at, I recently published a video about the future air travel, how COVID-19 will change the way we travel. If you look at a lot of travel will become contactless, means there's no more touching, there's no more touch points at the airport. 6 feet apart, social distancing through the queues, checkpoints. At the check-in, at the boarding, you will see maybe people will board from the back to the front to reduce contact and to reduce the traffic on the jet bridge or on the tarmac when you board a plane. And also, there will be a lot of people maybe segregating space, social distancing. I think it's maybe more psychological, but if that makes you comfortable, why not doing it? People are now, lots of people hate to fly full flights with everyone with mask on, thinking everyone's sneeze will spread around. So I completely understand that sentiment and that psychology as well. And now airlines are also reducing their service inside a plane. That is actually annoying, right, to a lot of us who enjoy a nice meal or a nice drink. So airline now these days hand out a pre-packaged bag with one sanitizing wipe, and airline are handing out a bottle of water and also maybe a snack box. That's all it is. So they're reducing the time to take for the service. They're just passing around the bag and passing around the snack bag, and that's it. So I hope this is not the new standard. I hope this is just temporary. And I hope the good old travel standard will return at some point when we defeated the virus. So, but right now you can see quite a bit of change during the flights. Have a look at that video I made. That has really good details on there. So let's have a look again. Okay, let's see. Yeah, after the pandemic, will you come to India? Yeah, I was planning to come to India earlier to fly Vistara, right? Vistara will receive the 787, and I believe it's already flying domestically. And 10 weeks ago, the pandemic put everything to a stop. In fact, this year I had planned so far in Q2, which is all canceled now, is to fly to India to do the Vistara, to fly to Kenya, to do quite a few things with Kenya Airways, to also do documenting 2 very old airplanes flying cargoes in Kenya, 727 and DC-9, which is completely rare. It's probably nowhere in the world you can find such airplane flying except to go to Kenya, and there's a couple one flying Alaska DC-9 freighters. So I have lots of crazy aviation plan that was put on hold because of this, and I'm not sure when it's gonna recover, honestly. So let's see what else we got here. We got too many questions. I feel really bad that we couldn't answer everything in one go. So I have one from Deepansh Tandon. I'm 16-year-old, love flying, your life, dream life. I think you can do the same as I do, but I'm 39 years old. I've been doing this since I was 20. So, you're only 16. You have a long way ahead, honestly. You got to believe yourself. You're not going to be able to achieve what my level right now in one go, right? Nothing's going to happen like that easy. But you take your time, step by step, one milestone after another. That's how I did it. I did it when I was very small, and I did it for so long. And then, but I wasn't thinking about social media. There was no social media at that time. It was just, out of my own passion, out of my own belief. I just like to do this and take pictures of my flight and document and share my pictures. And slowly I get here, and you will get here as well if you give a consistent try in doing this. And there are lots of people are doing what I'm doing as well, and they all been very successful as well, which is fantastic. All right, I've got one more question here. How would airfares be affected after COVID-19? That's a great question by Just Press Play. Airfares are driven by supply and demand. So if there are more supply than demand, airfare will be lower. Right now, the problem is the capacity. So the airlines are reduced the capacity to a point that they want to fill up all the planes. So the airfare seems like are going high again, but the airfares are actually much lower if you buy in advance at this point. But the problem is a lot of people are reluctant to travel with so much uncertainty. So the airfares are actually quite low if you buy in further down in advance in a few months' time. But a lot of people just wouldn't do it because they worry that money is taken by the airline. They are not able to get their refund if something happens, and they may be getting only a vouchers or travel credits, right? But if you travel last minute, the airfare is going to be very high right now because airlines are scaling the fares last minute. I will think that if airlines are adding capacity back quicker than the demand rebound, then we will see lower airfare. But by 2021 and 2022, I believe the rebound of travel will be much faster than actually the capacity adding by the airline because A380 and those planes will be temporarily stored and parked. So we will see smaller planes flying, means less capacity. And if we have more people want to fly with less capacity, what that means? That means the airfare is going to go higher. So I think out of all this, in the long term, in a few years, the airfare is going to definitely be higher than now. But in the immediate term, if you are willing to travel or if you have to travel, buy in advance, the tickets are actually quite competitive right now. So the short term is the airfare are lower. The long term, the airfare will go much higher. So that's how my take is. And however, the airfare is very dynamic. It changes every minute. That's the thing as well. Yeah. So there's another question. Do you like JetBrooks? JetBrooks is my good friend. In fact, that I'm figuring out if you guys know a good stream software, I can invite people come and doing chat, and I can invite any people here. That would be great. I did that once in Instagram, and I have random people. Lots of people wanted to join me for live, and I accept some people, and I have no idea where they're from. But we had a great time to know each other. Some people could be from all over the world, from Iceland, from India, from Kenya, from South Africa, from anywhere. Okay. Do you think Cafe Dragon and Hong Kong Express will merge? I don't know, honestly. I really don't know. It's very much of a question for the management of Cafe, right? Like, I honestly haven't followed what's happening there. I will be watching it as this thing develop, right? Will you be reviewing Turkish airline from Avia Ruby? Yes. In fact, Q2, I actually have planned to go to Airbus in Toulouse to cover the delivery ceremony of the Turkish Airlines A350. That whole plan has been put on hold right now. There are lots of airplanes waiting to be delivered because of coronavirus held up everything. So I think Turkish Airlines is about to receive the A350. I don't know when, because until the pandemic's over. But definitely, I plan to fly on the A350 of Turkish Airlines. That's actually the last A350 carrier for a while, because just about every major airline had received the A350 they order. You think about British Airways, Air France, Delta, whether it's smaller airline like Fiji or all the Asian airlines, Singapore, Malaysia, Thai, Cathay Pacific, China Airlines, Japan Airlines, you name it. They all have received. So Turkish was one of the last this year after Aeroflot and the German government, which also received the A350. So let's see what else there is. So there's another question: how are airports going to change after this pandemic? So I have already discussed about it. There will be less touch points at the airport. So you better do check-in online and using your cell phone or tablets and then scan your QR code to go through the security. 6 feet apart, social distancing. You will see sneeze guard. What's sneeze guard? Sneeze guard is like a transparent glass in front of the counter to protect the airline staff and between the distance and you and the staff. Your bags may be also sanitized as well. Airport like Hong Kong and a lot of other airports are expanding their sterilization. They even have little boxes. You can stand inside 40 seconds, sterilize yourself. So there's a lot of new measure. It's all about hygiene and contactless here. Okay. Let's see what else we got here. Yeah, why not organize a Zoom meeting? Okay, we'll think about that as well. There are lots and lots of interesting comments here. So I'm going to slowly go through them probably after live and come back and see your comment here. How do you think about an overpriced ticket to go back to China because the restriction they put on international flight? This is really, really a touching issue here. I can tell you this. I have friends. My mother has friends want to go back to China, and the airfare has been high through the roof. The Chinese government only allow one flight a week from most international cities to go back to China. Think about that. If you have such high demand and low supply, the airfare is through the roof, right? I heard about it's like $5,000 a ticket from US to China. And also you might be flying a packed flight with 200 people inside. And the chances are you might contact something there. So I would against to travel unless you have really essential need right now. And I think it's terrible to have such high airfare because of maybe the airlines are having lots of demand and people are beating up and want to pay this. But it's a terrible thing, honestly. And also I believe that lots of airlines have been told they're unable to restart flying back to China. Qatar Airways, Emirates, Delta, United. So this is really bad because that means there's very few airlines can fly to China, making going back to China very difficult at the moment, which is actually a very hot topic, I believe, in China right now. Whether you want to set more passenger coming in from high coronavirus area, or whether, this is entirely very political driven as well, I have to say. How do I think about Emirates? So if you can be more specific, I'll answer your question because I love Emirates. Emirates is fantastic airline. Let me see this. I have an Etihad ticket for my infant this year, 10%. And sadly, I must pay extra for next year because my baby over 2 years old. What do you think as aviation enthusiasm and as a PAX? That's unfortunate, right? As your baby grows, you have to pay full fare next year. And it's really an unfortunate situation. It's one of those situations you get caught in here and it's not going to make you winner, right? I feel bad, but the most important thing, again, is health. And if your baby is healthy and everything went past through this difficult time, then let's look at something positive in the future to travel. Okay, so do you think that the pandemic stops, you'll be able to show us more private jets? We always have private jets in the video. What kind of private jet would you like to see? I have flown 747, I've flown 787, I have flown Gulfstream. I think maybe some of the newer ones, maybe you talk about like Bombardier Global Express 7500 and the Gulfstream G650, something like that. Let's try. Obviously, I have to look for an invite or getting on some contact to work this. It's not so easy. Lots of video we made in the background here, like flying on the Antonov 124, that takes 6 months of paperwork, back and forth with lots of emails, lots of contact to get through this. It's just not so easy to film something. Maybe flying is okay, but if you want to film something, you need to have even more permission, right? So it's not that so easy just like buying an airline ticket and fly like that. There is no tickets for flying those planes. Those planes are very, very special and rare. Okay, let's see what else we got here. So there was a cool question. What was your best experience? And also there's a strike videos asking Sam Chui, what's your favorite airline? I have repeatedly come out and saying, I have a bunch of favorite airlines and favorite experience. I answered earlier in the chat. The favorite airlines I have, Emirates, Singapore Airlines. Most of you would agree because these are really consistently top carriers, wicked carriers. I like all the really, really consistent airlines like ANA, Qantas. They have long reputation being very consistent. I recently flew Air New Zealand. They're really, really great as well. Let me see, Delta Airline, I must say I'd be really impressed with Delta, what they have done. Although traditionally I'm more of a United guy because when I grew up, I flew United 747. That was my first 747 flight and stuff like that. Who else I left out? Etihad, Qatar, those are great airlines. New airplanes. Think about an airline have hundreds of new airplanes. Those in the Middle East are able to do so, right? But again, there's not airline I hate, I must say. I love to try out every single airline, good or bad. I've flown Air Koryo, North Korean airline, only 1 star by Skytrax, but I still enjoyed it because it's so different, and there's a lot of airline out there I haven't flown, which I'm looking forward to fly. So from Peter, any news about Comac C919, maybe or not a competitor for A320, 737? C919 is smaller than A320 and 73, right? Oh, sorry, I mixed up with you. I was thinking the ARJ21. I apologize. So, yeah, I haven't got news, honestly, about the C919. I've seen it did a few test flights out of China, out of Shanghai, the factory, right? And I'm actually really looking forward to see it. I think it depends on the the program, and I'm really curious because there's not a lot of transparency about the C919 program. At what stage, what difficulty they have, whether they have problem with cabin pressure. There was a lot of speculations about outside, but with China, the thing is, it's not so transparent. I must say, they should really do a better job at marketing this plane. So far, I can't remember who else ordered the C919 outside of the Chinese area. But yeah, so I really don't see a lot of news happening right now. It's a great question. Maybe I'll take a look when I hear something. I'll post that on my blog. Thank you so much for that question. Yeah, so let's see how else we got. Sam, I also collect airplanes model like you. Do you have Korean Air diecast? Which aircraft do you have? Korean Air, right? So let me think. Do I have Korean Air diecast? I think the airline, the diecast I collect mostly are Gemini jets, are 1/200 and 400 scale, which you have probably seen my recent video about visiting Gemini Jet's headquarters store. And I'm a good friend with the president because I started collecting when they first rolled out in early 2000. It's been 22 years since I collect Gemini jets. I don't collect a lot of other models because they're not licensed. They're not really having permission from the airline. They're just pirating stuff. And some of them, the painting could be quite wrong. I'm actually only collecting planes which I have flown because I used to collect everything. Then I run out of room. Then I run out of control and I run out of money as well because they're just too much. And I only now collect planes has significant meaning of me. So it's all of those planes are flown, like KLM 747 or Qantas Dreamliner, which I've flown. So let's see what else, because we have answered a lot of these questions in the past. So I'm actually like looking at this. Okay. There's a question from Fish Mohan. Sam, can you please take a video about how the scrapped airplane part are distributed, how the flow goes? Also about some tips about dry leasing and wet leasing. About the scrapped airplane parts, right? I actually have a video coming this weekend, Saturday. It will be actually very related to that. You can see what these parts turn into airplane furnitures and turn into collectibles. So this is actually will be quite an interesting video for a lot of you who loves aviation like me to look at how these chairs, how the trolleys, and how the engine cowling can turn into a beautiful piece of furniture, home furniture, office furniture. So I hope you guys will watch this weekend's vlog because it's actually quite different. It's all about collectors. Yeah, so let's see. By the way, also their news came yesterday is Boeing has resumed the 737 MAX production, which is also a very positive news because we are, Boeing is expecting Q3 to see the MAX certified back in the air. So we hope that the momentum is building for the MAX, and it has gone through a lot, and it has gone through probably a lot of stringent tests to make sure it's safe for the public to fly again, right? To gain the confidence, and I really hope that is the case. And I am actually looking forward to fly a MAX again because, I think I actually think 737 is a phenomenal airplane. It has sold thousands and thousands, Boeing's bestseller ever, right? And I'm sure they would do all the work, whatever it takes necessary to make this safe airplane to fly again. And for those who doesn't believe 737 MAX, the only way to make you to believe, of course, is to go out and fly one. And because you can't just sit at home and thinking about all these negativities and all that stuff. You really need to try, experience something before you can make a conclusion about things, right? Yeah. Okay. Let's see. There's a lot of people keep putting comment back and forth, like, yeah, I'm a big fan of you. You should come with Kenya Airways. Like I just said to a lot of fans earlier, about 10 minutes ago, my Q2 plan was supposed to come to fly Kenya Airways to Kenya. And then I will enjoy some tourism and flying Air Kenya -7 and also Astro Aviation. And that plan has been on hold because of the virus, and also Kenya's border is closed just like every other country. So this has seriously affected my travel plan and also everybody. It's something we have to get used to right now. This is the new normal. stay at home to use other ways to focus on what you need to do. And also, do you like the 777-9X, right, from Aviation 2409? I haven't flown, but I have seen this airplane. It looks phenomenal. The wingtip folding up and down, that is actually quite a smart design to fit into existing gate infrastructure. I do fear the future of the large airplane like 777X, because a lot of airplane like the A380 was just born in the wrong time. It's all about timing when there's market demand economies for these airplanes. For very large airplane, maybe a few years, when the 777-300ER gets really old, airlines are starting to replace them. Hopefully, at that time, the travel demand is good, the economy is good, then they can order more 777X. Phenomenal airplane, just like the A380 and every other airplane 747 they built. It's all great, but it just depends on the timing and the economies and the confidence of the travel. And then it's all about the timing. Really, it's sad for the A380. It's just in the wrong timing to compete with more efficient two-engine airplane like 780 and 350. Yeah. Like, okay, I'm gonna come back again. We still have lots of questions about the PIA crash, which I have repeatedly mentioned at the beginning of the PIA crash is covered on my blog and covered before on my Instagram stories. If you haven't seen it, you need to actually go back and have a look. So I have covered all that. But it is really a sad, sad news. And I felt like people, are reacting too much on it. And I covered it. And I don't want to share overly sensitive and sad news during already stressful COVID-19 time. Okay. And I don't understand why. Really, all the people from Pakistan want me to share this sad news over and over. We have already covered just like every other incident in the blog. And, whether you want to have more publicity and all that, I rather want you to have less publicity because it is such a sad time about this. And have some respect to the families and those rest in peace to all the ones who perished in this horrible accident. And wait for the air investigator to come back about what went wrong. Really. It's hard for me. It's not for me. It's not a thing for me to predict what happens. It's just really sad. If any air accident happens, wait for the air crash investigator to happen. Okay. All right. So let's ask one more question, like about the. Let's see what else we've got here. Okay, I'm going to pick on some interesting questions because a lot of questions I have previously answered. And I will appreciate you look up some answers I have done. Yeah, this is a great question from Sebastian 225. Please comment about the epic operation of the N225 Maria. Greetings, Sam. So the N225 is unique, right? Is the world's largest airplane, largest transporter, which has 630 kilos 630 tons, 630,000 kilos of maximum takeoff weight, which is way bigger than 380 and 747, right? It even carried a space shuttle mounted on the back. That's how crazy it was. It's amazing to see this airplane. It's coming back in service. It was in hiatus or maintenance for 6 months in Ukraine, in the factory in Antonov. And now he came back and doing this kind of transporting cargo out of China to Montreal, to Toronto, and once the travel is clear, I really hope to go to Anchorage. Anchorage is now probably the world's busiest airport because the cargo carry Trans-Pacific, the cargo. And every couple of minutes, you see flight radar. There is a 747 MD-11 cargo, 777 cargo landing. The Antonov 225 regularly being to Anchorage because of refueling between China and North America. And also the N225 go through Almaty in Kazakhstan, onward to Leipzig or Greece, Athens. So if you look at flight radar, you can track this airplane. This is an incredible airplane. And also like it's similar to the N124 I have flown because it can offload cargo efficiently and rather less infrastructure needed. It can open the front door and open the back door, so it can open front and back to both ways. It can offload the cargo. So it's actually an incredible design in the 1980s in the Soviet Union when this plane was built. So it's actually phenomenal. It's something makes aviation very unique to have such airplane like this. Okay, so let's see what else. Okay, I've got the question about Air Mauritius, right? Air Mauritius is in voluntary administration, and doesn't mean the airline is gone bankrupt, right? It's actually like a reorganization right now by the administrator. So hopefully the airline will emerge stronger. And I'm looking forward to go back to Mauritius because Mauritius is really largely depends on tourism, right? So they need to be opening at some point, so the airline can survive when there's enough tourists and when there's enough infrastructure to support this airline. So it's very critical for a lot of smaller country. Life is depends on the tourism feed to be safe and open, and so the airline carrier can excel in carrying the tourists again. Okay, so let's see what else we've got here. So I've got Erico. Oh, can I come? I fly you with my newly bought H47 Chinook and V22 Osprey, free of charge, being my #1 YouTuber. Thank you so much. It's incredible you can buy such amazing military equipment. And actually, I encourage you to make a YouTube video and show me about them, right? Okay. South Africa, yes. Again, South Africa is also one of those country. I recently read blog news saying they won't open for tourists until 2021, which is pretty drastic. I knew South Africa is really largely depends on a lot of tourists coming to the Western Cape, to coming to, for safaris and sightseeing. When South Africa open again, I definitely will come because I love South Africa. The people are very cool. South African Airways is also kind of, it's a government airline. It has lots of conflicting news, like Thai Airways as well. So I don't know what is the new plan right now, and hopefully they can use the COVID-19 time to figure out a best way forward, because a lot of people have said to me that this airline has gone through a lot of corruption and mismanagement, and it's a powerhouse. It used to be the largest airline in Africa before Ethiopian Airlines took off. And it's sad to see they keep shrinking when other airlines keep going stronger and stronger, right? So I believe that there is still a strong case for a long-haul carrier out of South Africa because of that unique geographic position. It's a very hard geographic position as well because, it's actually, it's so far down in the end of Africa, and you need some long-haul connection to all the other continents. Yeah, so let's answer one more question, and I think today we did pretty well. Is there anything else you want to hear from me that's important? I encourage you to ask and use your super chat so I can sieve through lots and lots of questions here. Okay. What are your thoughts about Cathay changing 777X order? I don't have a confirmation. I think they're still in discussion with Boeing. I knew there's a lot of rumor. Every airline is trying to defer or trying to do something to their future plane order because right now they need to preserve cash to survive and to also keep, to keep the jobs of tens and thousands of staff. So there is a priority to set right for the management to manage this company, right? Typically, order such a large plane is a large capital expenditure, so if this is the best worst time, why would you go to buy something? Why would you go to buy a car? Why would you go to buy a plane? So it is really critical for the airline to survive. And Cathay has lots of new airplanes, a lot of A350-1000, which is maybe in the similar range of the 777X as well. We will wait until official announcement before the rumors, right? Yeah, this is a really good question from Jonathan Willem. What's your Q3, Q4 trip review schedules? Do you think FAA is being nitpicking on inspecting the 737 MAX? I don't have comments on the FAA part because I'm not an insider. But like I said, the Q3, Q4 trip review schedule largely depends on how international travel is opening, how the border will be open. And if, like I mentioned, if every border is kind of closed, then there will be no possibility of doing trip reviews, flying internationally. Maybe domestically in the US. I do plan to go to Alaska if Alaska opens up soon. This is the right season, May, June, and July for Alaska because it's beautiful up there, and I want to fly the Milk Run Alaska Airlines through all the little stops. Between the Milk Run, there is a stop between Wrangell and Petersburg. It's only 9 minutes flights on Alaska Airlines at 9,000 feet between the two stops, which is very exciting. Yeah, so honestly, I felt like this year is going to be a write-off. I don't think this year is going to have a lot of international travel happens. It might be more for the critical need people to travel instead of going on trip review. So I feel like, this year we will see a different weight of videos instead of my normal weight of video. That's how I feel. Let's see what else. This is also a good question, right? From N.03 Brown. How do you get access to fly aircraft like N124 and 747-8 freighter Qatar? So I can tell you it is by invite from the airline company, by your connection. So I actually knew people at Antonov at the Volga Dnieper, and I proposed a plan to them. I told them that, I am an AF geek. I really, really admire the N124 because it's such an incredible airplane, and I want to fly with you. And then initially, I got a rejection saying no, because you don't have certain paperwork. You did this and that, and then this actually took 6 months to organize, and back and forth, a lot of communications, a lot of pushback, a lot of So you're just gonna be persistent, trying and trying. But obviously, you gotta have something they want as well. So they want to see your media. They want to see that you have a large following. You can create at least a good video for them. So it's a bit of give and takes for this kind of flight to happen. It's not like you can buy a ticket to go on board, right? So you need to kind of present a case that both wins. Basically, you can create something. You get to fly the N124 and feel the plane and enjoy the plane, and they see you create a great video for them as well about documenting, not necessarily hard selling them, not necessarily doing something like dishonest. I'm just saying that you create something that show them about this plane, what the capability, how do they load cargo, document something about their operation. Simple as that. It's all about a unique proposal, really, about what can you do, and then how you get on this airplane, right? If one day I'm going to fly the N225, again, it's the same thing, right? The N225 is a bespoke airplane. Everybody knows it's the largest airplane, and everybody will be curious about it. So, like I said, this is the way it is. There's no buying a ticket, so it's very unique. You got to have a creative solution and to motivate yourself and keep trying and trying. Maybe many times you fail and you're never actually able to fly, but it doesn't hurt to keep trying, right? Yeah, so let's see what else we've got here. I just want to tell you about this Saturday. Every Saturday I make a vlog, as probably you knew it. And this Saturday is about turning a lot of airplane parts, a lot of airplane junk into crazy furnitures, which I will share with you on Saturday. You can buy a pair of airplane seats, a trolley, an engine cowling, own a piece of window, an airplane. How cool that will be. This all coming out of junkyard, turning something into collectibles and beyond just collecting die-cast models, right? So this Saturday is a new video of that. And next Saturday, I plan to have a video going back to 12 years ago when I flown a 747 SP of Syrian Air. So, Syria has been war since 2011, and I was very fortunate to have flown a Syrian Air 747 SP in 2008. And now I'm going to make a video going back to the good old times, what I did with all these airplanes. So slowly you can appreciate how I became and how I came a long way like this, all right? Okay, so let's take one more question before we end today. The main thing I want today is giving you my updates about PPL flying. I mentioned that earlier about that, and also, I want to give you guys motivation about getting through things. Let me talk about this actually. About before I was never able to think, I can actually go to fly as a learner, as a student pilot right now. But now I've gaining confidence after a few takeoff and landing. I've actually felt so much more confident. It is all about, I think, growing yourself, developing yourself, and it's a natural progression. I started loving planes because I was a plane spotter, just like many of you. at the airport, looking at pictures, looking at creating, making pictures of planes coming in, take off and land. And then later, when I graduated from my university, when I started a job, I have some money. Then I start buying airplane tickets to fly, and I became a passenger, and then later I became a enthusiast and reviewing flying. So and then I reviewed a lot of flight, and I also was very lucky to fly in the cockpit, following the pilots, looking at how they fly the airplane, and develop that curiosity. Next progression will be taking my own PPL and see how far I can go. I'm not saying I'm going to become an airline pilot, but I think that it just see how far I can go. It's learning a new skill set. It's like driving a car, get your car license, and now flying a plane, get your pilot plane license, and then like later on, I don't know which way it goes, but it's all about knowledge. It's actually enhancing my knowledge. Now I finally understand how to use a rudder, how the aileron work, how does the air pressure works, and lots of things. When I used to be a passenger, I probably think this is too technical. This is all physics for me. But now I'm actually embrace myself for that challenge, which I'm really happy actually to be able to do something a little bit outside of my comfort zone, because I actually have a bit of fear about, flying the plane myself, right? At the beginning, I wasn't confident, but then only you push yourself, and by actually doing it, you feel it. That's how the way I felt about it. So let me take one more question, and it's about 56 minutes today. I plan to do 1 hour, and I love to thank you so much for your continued support here. I understand I couldn't answer all the questions, but I'm doing my best here. Does your parents love aviation? Yes, I think my mom was also always in support of me by doing this, because my mom, when I was young, she took me travel around the world. So that really developed my passion, right? So I do think that, everyone loves aviation too, Let's see. Is there anything like I haven't answered before? Okay, this one also. What's your opinion on the Virgin Orbit test failure? I think that it is a great learning exercise. It takes probably more than one try to launch that rocket that propelled a satellite into the space orbit. They said they collected lots of great data out of this failed launch. But the ignition was good. There's a clean release. So it's not I don't see it as a complete failure, but I think if you don't fail, if you just have successful just like that, it's pretty rare, right, to see things. But I hope they can probably go back and learn. And even if they fail again, and they should keep trying until they succeed. And then I wouldn't react overly negatively because of one failure. What's failure? What's the success without failure? It will taste even better, right? If you succeeded after all the failures. That's how I see it, right? And then given the same analogy, you gotta believe in yourself in doing whatever you do. Because I used to have lots of people come back to me and saying like, you fail, you wouldn't able to do this, you wouldn't able to do that. However, I've been proving all these people failed. They have probably wrong agendas, because the only way you can prove people wrong is you to go out to do things by yourself. There's no other ways. The only way is failure is not a problem. Failure is not a problem at all, because if you don't fail, you wouldn't feel the good success. That's how I see it. Okay, let me answer one more, because I really enjoyed seeing so much questions here. Okay, what do you think about Starlux Airline? I haven't flown Starlux. Starlux has A321, right, flying out of Taipei. But, I haven't got a chance to fly it before the COVID-19. And I'm really banking on they still survive and hoping to get the 350, they're down to, I think, one route a day or something, one flight a day or something like that. So, I really wish them good luck. This is a terrible time to start, right? If they manage to survive through this, they will emerge to be stronger. Let me see any other good questions here. I'll go back a little bit to see anything here. Yeah. Okay. There's a guy want me to talk about the airplane in my PPL training. The PPL training I've been flying is the Sling airplane. The Sling airplane is actually made in South Africa. It is actually a different airplane to Cessna. Usually people start flying with Cessna 152, and a Cessna 172. However, I chose a sling because I was so impressed. It was controlled by a stick in the middle. It wasn't controlled by a yoke like two hand like this. It was a stick in the middle, and um, the airplane performance was so great. It actually takes motor gas, so you take car gas instead of aft gas, which is very cheap to operate as well. And I fly out of Torrance with Sling Pilot Academy, which is actually a new pilot academy. They're flying this very unique airplane called Sling, which I believe will revolutionize and will make a lot of people. I even have people who used to fly Cessna was so impressed about the Sling, and some people just come over from other flight schools saying, "I don't want to fly this airplane anymore because I was so impressed about the Sling airplane." So hopefully in a few weeks, I will start my solo flights. Then I'll make a video and I explain to you what is so great about Sling airplane. This airplane is so easy to fly. It has fantastic avionics and fantastic all the screens, just like an iPad. You can touch and you can touch screen. You can zoom in. It's just make things so easier. So goodbye to all the charts. Goodbye to all the paperworks and all the books. And I never felt flying a plane can be actually so seamlessly. It's so easy. It's just like a very automated airplane as well. Okay, let me see anything else there is. By the way, I want to say about one last thing about is I'm actually launched a podcast as well. The podcast you can find on YouTube. The channel is called the Sam Chui Aviation Business Podcast. So if you type Sam Chui Aviation Business Podcast, I just launched the first podcast, which is actually sponsored by Bose, the headsets company who makes aviation headsets. The podcast idea is to share more business perspective instead of having YouTube about the vlog about planes. The podcast is all about what's happening in the aviation business world. For some of you might be interested, it's worth a listen to it. It's about 15, 20 minutes. And every month we have a new episode. We invite guests on board. They could be management from an airline or from a aviation company to share their views. So it's a very business gear focused aviation business podcast. Okay, so I would like to thank you all very much. Hopefully in a few weeks we can do one more live like this. And I hope it gives you a lot of time to feel good today, and feel free to continue to post your comments, and I'd like to answer as much as I can next time as well. But thank you so much again for today, for staying time with me. I certainly enjoyed the time with you, and thank you so much.